Hello and welcome. You're watching Good Morning India. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. From the latest on the vaccine to what's happening in that all-important case in the Supreme Court, which is supposed to take up a bunch of petitions, both to and fro the protests that are being held by the farmers. We've got our eyes on the top stories of the day. First up, the headlines. Akali's strongest attack on BJP over farm loss. Sukhbir Badal calls BJP the real Tukde gang. Meanwhile, in Delhi's cold wave, farmers shiver but stick to their demand of rollback on farm laws. Cabinet meeting today. The all-important incentives on exports of the sugar mills to be taken up. Export subsidy of at least 3,600 crore likely for sugar mills. AIIMS nurses unions call off their strike late last night. Move comes after the Delhi High Court order. In Kerala, it's counting day to day as the poll body is looking into counting of those votes. And now test for parties ahead for 2021 assembly elections. And from Kerala to Jammu and Kashmir, election processes are on. Jammu and Kashmir is voting in its 7th phase today in midst of a dipping temperature and a high-stake battle for BJP and the opposition, the People's Alliance. Late President's son and daughter fight over his memoirs. The son says top publication have seen only motivated excerpts. The daughter says views expressed in the book are my father's and written by him in the best of his health. And finally, let's begin by bringing you the latest on the vaccine. Now, India is getting vaccine ready, and the government has said that 6 vaccines are undergoing clinical trials in India, and 3 of them are under emergency use consideration already. Now, the government has said that there's an extra data that's awaited, but it doesn't expect that to impact the vaccine timelines just yet, which was towards the end of this year.
India has 3 COVID vaccines waiting for emergency clearance. Today, the government said while it is waiting for more data, this wait will not delay their timelines. The 3 vaccines are by Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute of India and the American pharma giant Pfizer, rolled out in the US, but which is yet to present its data here.
कि 3 वैक्सीन की एप्लीकेशन हमारे ड्रग्स कंट्रोलर साहब के पास हैं और उनको एग्जामिन किया जा रहा है इमरजेंसी यूज ऑथराइजेशन के लिए कि उनको क्या प्रोग्राम में लाया जा सकता है. इसको इट्स बीइंग एग्जामिन्ड ऑन साइंटिफिक बेसिस. ये 3 एप्लीकेशन अंडर कंसिडरेशंस हैं. इनका इटरेटिव प्रोसेस है. डेटा मांगा जाता है, डेटा दिखाया जाता है और दिस इंडिपेंडेंट प्रोसेस, ऑब्जेक्टिव प्रोसेस आगे बढ़ाया जा रहा है. मैं यहाँ ये कहना चाहूँगा कि जब इन प्रोसेसेस की हम बात करते हैं तो इट इज़ नॉट 1 इंडिविजुअल और 3 पीपल. These are people who are scientists, epidemiologists, clinicians, basic scientists, biologists, जो इकट्ठे बैठ के देखते हैं, pharmacologists, और वो साइंस के बेस के ऊपर ये फैसले करते हैं. That and these people represent the very best, the most competent, objective individuals. We must have faith, and that is very important because अपने देश की institutions में हमें ये छवि दिखनी चाहिए कि ये दुनिया के स्टैंडर्ड्स से भी बेहतर काम करने में की ताकत रखते हैं.
What are the preparations? 633 districts ready for rollout, cold chain in place, 29,000 points, 87,000 freezers, 1,54,000 nurses being trained to vaccinate. The government is also developing a more elaborate mechanism to take care of any adverse events or side effects that may occur post-vaccination, as this is an adult vaccine for now.
Firstly, this is an adult vaccine. Our AFI system was targeted to children and women. To deal with adults, they are going to be physically located in some ways, in a different way, and therefore practical aspects have to be tackled. Number two, we should remember that these vaccinations are new platforms. Number three, multiple platforms, not just new, but also different platforms. That brings in complexity. And also, if an emergency authorization is being given, please remember it is an emergency authorization, and that brings in even more responsible behavior.
This comes at a time when India's cases are declining. Today, India registered its lowest one-day figure in 5 months with 22,065 new cases. The lowest cases since 7th of July, which was 22,252 cases. India's recovery rate has reached 95.12%, while the global recovery rate is 70.12%. But India's testing rate is far lower than countries like the UK and the US. Tests per 1,000 in the UK is 4.6, in the US it is 4.3, in Canada it is 2.19, in India it is 0.75.
Government sources say that the Union Health Ministry has already received data of 50 lakh healthcare workers out of the 1 crore that are set to be vaccinated in the first phase. In New Delhi with camera person Manu Nair, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
In fact, let's go across to Sukirti Dwivedi to get the latest on this story. Sukirti, you were at the press conference where a detailed plan has been made clear to the public on how the government actually wants to roll out the vaccine and who will get it. The big question, who will get it first? Take us through that.
Well, yes, there has been a detailed mechanism that has been prepared for the vaccine rollout, which includes, firstly, at least 29,000 cold chain points across the country. Over 87,000 freezers are being arranged for that process. Over 1.25 lakh vaccinators, people who will be responsible for administering the actual vaccine. This would include auxiliary nurse midwives, or commonly known as ANMs. So those would be involved in the process. As far as who will be the first to receive the vaccine, Dr. Harshvardhan has said that by August 2021, they plan to vaccinate at least the first 30 crore frontline workers. Among these 30 crore, there are divisions that includes at least 1 crore healthcare workers. There are 2 crore police forces and armed forces personnel, and then about 27 crore people who are above the age of 50, and then those who are below the age of 50 but have comorbidities. So those are the plans that are being prepared. And the one significant point to add here is that apart from administering the vaccine, the government is also taking care of any adverse events or side effects that may happen once the vaccine has been administered to someone. So adverse effect post-immunization is a mechanism that they've also prepared, that in case somebody develops a side effect right after getting the vaccine, who are the vaccinating officers that will be taking care of that person, which is the community health center or the primary health center or other hospital that this person needs to be taken to, what is the care that would be involved in that process. Because we've always had vaccines for children, but this is the first time that we are looking at vaccines for adults at this point of time. So the mechanisms have to be more elaborate in nature. So all care being taken by the government at this point of time in terms of preparation.
All right, Sukirti Dwivedi, thanks so much for bringing us the latest. All right, and today is day 21 of the farmers' protest. Mercury is constantly dipping. If you've been waking up in the National Capital Region, it has a lot of a dip in the air. And at this point, in moments like these, farmers continue to be striking and to be protesting on the borders of Delhi, living under the open. Here's a wrap of what happened on day 20.
Three images to define day 20th of the farmers' protest. For the government, the outreach began straight with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting a group of Sikh farmers settled in Gujarat's Kutch. A meeting loaded with political messaging. The Prime Minister said the support for the farm laws was from every corner of the country. and said that the opposition must stop shooting off the farmers' shoulder.
आज जो लोग विपक्ष में बैठकर किसानों को भ्रमित कर रहे हैं, वो भी अपनी सरकार के समय इन कृषि सुधारों के समर्थन में थे। मैं अपने किसान भाई बहनों से कि उनकी हर शंका के समाधान के लिए सरकार 24 घंटे तैयार है।
Back in New Delhi, the agriculture minister continued meeting pro-government farmer unions who support the new farm laws. This even as BJP functionaries attacked the protesting farmers, calling them anti-nationals.
कुत्सित मानसिकता के जो वामपंथी हैं, ये जो टुकड़े टुकड़े जो गैंग है, ये हर जगह जाकर उन परिस्थितियों का फायदा उठाने की कोशिश करती है।
जो किसान विरोधी सरकार है, तानाशाही के दम पर इस आंदोलन को बदनाम करना चाहती है, लेकिन मैं एक बात कहना चाहता हूं कि इस देश का किसान जाग चुका है। आज ये पंजाब हरियाणा का नहीं, पूरे देश का आंदोलन हो चुका है।
With no solution in sight even after 20 days, the government strategy seems to be reject any rollback demand but offer amendments, de-hyphenate the farmers from the political protesters, attempt to discredit the opposition and to win over the farmers one union at a time. NDTV Bureau Report.
Meanwhile, Akali Dal's strongest attack on BJP over the farm laws that has just come in. Sukhbir Badal called the BJP the real टुकड़े gang. Listen in.
सही मैंने ते असली टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग बीजेपी है। पहले हिंदू ते मुसलमान दे रिश्ते टुकड़े टुकड़े कीते, हुण जान के प्रचार कर रहे हैं कि हिंदू ते सिख विच पाड़ पाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। श्रोमणी अकाली दल किते बर्दाश्त नहीं करेगा पंजाब विच भाईचारे सांझ खत्म होए।
Meanwhile, the other big important development that's going to happen today is the cabinet meeting, which is likely to clear the export incentives for the sugar mills. Export subsidy of at least 3,600 crore is likely to be taken up for the sugar mills. Akhilesh joins us now for more on this. Akhilesh, this coming at a time when farmers are out there protesting is key.
Absolutely. The government wants to send a very strong signal to the farmers that it is working in their interest. And if we know that, especially the farmers from the western Uttar Pradesh who are protesting at the Delhi borders in Ghazipur and Noida, it's a message for them that, they have a major problem that their dues are not cleared by the sugar manufacturers. So this time the government, third year continuously in a row, that is going to give subsidy on the sugar export, and this is in tune of 3,600 crore rupees, which is a huge amount, and this is linked to the dues which are dues to the farmers. So if their dues are cleared, then only this sugar manufacturers can get this subsidy. So this money will go directly into the pockets of the farmers, and the government hopes that this will send another message, because the government has been always saying that it is working in the interest of the farmers. And this year there is a record procurement of paddy and wheat, and this is the third step which the government is going to take in the interest of the farmers.
All right, and Akhilesh, just to get an understanding from you, the sugarcane belt is mostly western UP, right? So this does not impact the Punjab farmers directly, or does it?
It does not, but it's a message for the western UP farmers who are agitating at the borders of Delhi, in Ghazipur and Noida, that the government is working in their interest and they should not join the protest which is taking place at the other borders of Delhi, where the farmers from Punjab and Haryana are mainly protesting, and these are the farmers who are basically the producer of wheat and paddy. So that is why the government is working on the three fronts. As far as the wheat and paddy is concerned, the government says that this year there has been a record procurement of these two crops, and this procurement will continue in the future, and the MSP regime will also continue. And as far as the sugarcane farmers are concerned, so the government is taking care of their interests also, because they have major complaint, especially farmers belonging to western UP and Maharashtra, that the sugar mill owners, they do not clear their dues. So now this incentive will be linked to the dues. If the dues are cleared of the farmers, then only the sugar manufacturers will get this export subsidy.
All right, so key development over there. Thanks, Akhilesh, for joining us with the latest. Let's also get a quick word in from Arun. Arun joins us from one of the borders. Arun, tell us, where exactly are you, and are you seeing an impact of... oh, you're at the Chila border now, right? So that is a border which has been quite controversial. It was first blocked, then it was opened up again after farmers had some negotiations with Rajnath Singh. And now, today, what's the scene like?
Well, we saw Farmer Union addressing a press conference yesterday at Singhu border, and they said that protests will just intensify, and there are also plans to completely block Chila border. So currently what I see is both the sides are operating. This is the traffic coming from Noida and entering Delhi. Now remember, when it was blocked, there was a barricading put much behind this point that you're seeing, and there was no movement of these vehicles. So this side is absolutely open and the other side was always open, but then there are plans to fully block it. I've also spoken to multiple union leaders here or members, but they have not yet confirmed, and then they say that we will proceed as the day progresses. But now this is the camping site where multiple union leaders are there, and from Bharatiya Kisan Union we have Yogesh Pratap Singh, and he is the Pradesh Adhyaksh of Bharatiya Kisan Union, Bhanu. He has been sitting here on a hunger strike. आप बताइए, आज कुछ ऐसा है कि चिला बॉर्डर पूरी तरह से ब्लॉक होगा?
ब्लॉक चिला बॉर्डर होगा, ऐसा हो सकता है। क्या होगा?
आपको कितने दिन हो गए भूख हड़ताल पर बैठे हुए?
हो गए, चौथा दिन है। चार दिन हो गए, चौथा दिन है।
चौथा दिन है आज। अच्छा, तो आज भी सर्दी बहुत ज़्यादा, 9 डिग्री टेम्परेचर है इस वक्त, और आप इस टेंट के नीचे हैं। कितनी कठिनाई है?
अब कठिनाई जितनी है हद भी है कठिनाई तो।
अच्छा, वही कुछ यूपी फार्मर्स जो हैं वो अब कुछ हक में भी हैं, कुछ लीडर्स मिले भी एग्रीकल्चर मिनिस्टर से, तो उसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है? आप भी यूपी से ही हैं?
हाँ, यूपी से हैं। सरकार है, सरकार चाहे का होगा, चाहे कुछ कर सकते हैं, पश्चिम ले सकते हैं, सरकार की क्या बताएं।
नहीं, जैसे कुछ फैसले जो है वो गन्ने की जो फसल बोते हैं उनके हक में है, या कुछ इस तरह के कुछ कदम उठाए जा रहे हैं, तो उसमें आप खड़े हैं सरकार के साथ?
कछु हक में ना है, कौन सा हक में? ये तो पब्लिक को भी मारने की बात है। किसानों को पैसा नहीं मिलेगा अपनी फसल का, और जब स्टॉक कर लेंगे उद्योगपति तो महंगा मिलेगा खाने वालों को।
उत्तर प्रदेश कहाँ से आप?
एटा से।
एटा से आप, अच्छा। So these are farmers from Uttar Pradesh, and there we had from Bharatiya Kisan Union Bhanu, their leader, sitting on an indefinite hunger strike. This is his 4th day. Definitely easy movement of traffic for now, Sonal.
All right, so we'll have to see how and what happens as the day progresses. Thanks, Arun, for bringing us the latest on that. Meanwhile, here in the national capital, good news as the nurses' strike at the prestigious All India Institute of Medical Sciences has been called off. The move came as the Delhi High Court order came against them. Now, the director of the institute, Dr. Randeep Guleria, said that he thanks the nurses in the fraternity and assured them that their demands will be met.
From the AIIMS side, I assure you that we will aggressively try and resolve all the demands that you have. What AIIMS can do and what is something that we can do, within this week we will have regular and aggressive dialogue and try and resolve all of them. What has to be done from the ministry level, the ministry has assured that they will continue to have regular dialogue with the nurses union and will resolve those issues as much as they can, and they will do this as early as possible, hopefully within the next few days.
With that, we're going to slip into a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest on the Kerala local body polls, where results are trickling in. Welcome back, and it is crucial day for Kerala as the votes are now trickling in. Now, with the counting of the local body polls starting at around 8 a.m., there are 3 fronts, the LDF, the UDF and the NDA. They all have high stakes involved as the assembly elections are expected next year, just a few months from now. Let's go across to Sneha Merikoshi now bringing us the latest on this. Sneha, not all the time that we report local body polls like the way we are reporting right now. Everything said to be a precursor to the assembly polls. Tell us why it is so crucial.
Well, absolutely, Sonal. In fact, not about just how crucial this is, but also the scale of reporting. It's perhaps unprecedented that local body elections in Kerala have got so much of focus. Now, why so? We're coming to you from where the counting is happening. It's right inside this, at one of the school buildings where this counting is happening. You don't see party workers anywhere around at this point, which usually would have been the case. If my camera person can just pan and show, all the party workers are positioning themselves a little far away from the counting location. Also, now to give you the glimpse of why is this crucial, the assembly poll in 2021, somewhere around mid-2021, and that this is being seen as a litmus test by political parties on how people are going to be voting, what is on the mind of people. Now, you know, there are pockets in Kerala where there is also a triangular battle happening between the LDF, UDF as well as the NDA, one such being the Thiruvananthapuram Corporation. And that is something which is closely being watched. Well, it's the LDF which was leading in Thiruvananthapuram Corporation in 2015. It had the most number of seats. But it was also the BJP which shocked with the rise in the number of seats that it could win, pushing back the UDF to a third position in 2015 in Thiruvananthapuram Corporation. If you look largely across Kerala, LDF had the majority in most of the local bodies, or at least was leading in most of the local bodies, followed by UDF, and even BJP could increase its vote share. But it's a close challenge in many pockets this time, and a very, very, what do we say, literally a political test of all mights for the two leading fronts, being challenged by the NDA as well with its vote share in terms of what to expect for the 2021 assembly elections.
All right then. Thanks, Neha. We leave it there for the moment. Come back to you when we have more results. And from Kerala all the way to Jammu and Kashmir, there's always an election happening in the country. In Kashmir, for example, is the 7th phase, the district development elections in Jammu and Kashmir, and voting is taking place for the 31 seats today. The first election after major constitutional changes in Jammu and Kashmir last year, and it is spread over 8 phases. The long drawn-out election process will come to an end on the 19th, and the counting will take place on the 22nd of December. So whose happy Christmas is it going to be? Well, that is going to be decided whether is it going to be the BJP or the People's Alliance that has come up for the very first time. Nazir Masoodi joins us for more on this. Nazir, needless to say, it must be extremely cold, and despite that, voting is taking place.
Yeah, exactly, and that too starts before the first light of the day. At 7 a.m. polling is starting, which is before the first light, before the sunlight, and in extreme cold conditions, particularly in Kashmir, where you have sub-zero temperatures, and there are places which are very, very extremely cold. But despite that, people are braving all odds and coming out in large numbers. For last 6 weeks, there have been around 50% vote turnout, and the same is expected today as well. I'm in Poonch, which is right on line of control, coming here for a different story, but covering this election as well. And Poonch has actually recorded highest voter turnout in last 6 phases, which is over 70%. So, despite the hostilities near the line of along the line of control, people are braving all odds and reposing their faith in democracy, in voting, right to vote, and this is the first election post abrogation of Article 370 and downgrading state into Union territories. So people coming out and voting, and this is the first experiment for the people to vote for the district development council election. This is the third tier of the Panchayati Raj system. While these councils were normally being elected by the district block council, but it's first time and there's a direct election, and whatever would be the outcome of this election will reshape the politics in Jammu and Kashmir, because the main leaders in Jammu and Kashmir were mostly in jail for last 1 year, and they are emerging from that horrible strait, being in the jail, being in political hibernation. They're again coming. So politics is actually being revived because of this election. That is a good thing. And also, bigger thing is that it is so far very, very peaceful, and this long drawn out process will end on 19th of this month, when there will be 8th phase, and on 22nd will be the counting D-Day for all the parties, which way the people have decided to vote.
All right, so crucial polls over there. What happens to this united opposition and their future could also be decided by these polls. Thanks, Nazir, for joining us with the latest. We're going to slip into a break now, but on the other side, we'll tell you why are Pranab Mukherjee's son and daughter fighting over his book. What are those controversial excerpts that they don't want published? That's coming up next. Welcome back. Now, the Aam Aadmi Party National Convener Arvind Kejriwal on Monday hailed his party's maiden win in Goa Zilla Parishad elections, which marked the first electoral victory for the party in the coastal state. The Aam Aadmi Party opened its account with Sanjay Jha, who won that seat in South Goa.
The Aam Aadmi Party's new kid on the block in Goa. The party opened its account in Goa politics 5 years since its debut, with Hansel Fernandes winning the Zilla Parishad election from the Benoli seat in South Goa. His boss, the Delhi Chief Minister, says this is just the beginning and added that the AAP will live up to the trust and expectations of Goans.
This is just the stepping stone where we have won one seat. But now we are going to rise and we are going to win all the seats. And with that, we will do a lot of good work.
The party has been doing the groundwork in Goa, where the Congress has been practically decimated. The Zilla Parishad elections in the state has given the BJP an edge, with the Saffron Party winning 32 out of 49 seats. Independents won 7 seats. The Congress managed to win only 4 seats, while the Aam Aadmi Party has just 1 seat, its first, and that too a very young winner, who doubled his vote share.
This time it was a tough fight. It was a fight between huge parties which have already made a name, and this is just a budding party coming up, a youth with no political background.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has announced that his party will fight the elections in Uttar Pradesh, and in Goa, the party is surely going to contest with full force, party office bearers say.
दिल्ली के लोगों ने आम आदमी पार्टी को एक मौका दिया था. उन्हें आज आम आदमी पार्टी से इतना प्यार हो गया कि दिल्ली वाले अब बाकी सारी पार्टियां भूल गए. आप भी आम आदमी पार्टी को एक मौका देके देखिए.
Now, with a win in its kitty, political observers say the Aam Aadmi Party's growth in the state is going to come at the cost of the Congress Party, which is floundering. And the win in these elections has energized party workers to work for the state elections, which is a little more than a year away. In Mumbai, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
All right, let's now cut across to the latest in the national capital. Now, Pranab Mukherjee's last book, teased as his tell-all memoir by its publisher, has caused a public fight between his son, Abhijit Mukherjee, and daughter, Sharmishta. Both Congress leaders, remember. Let me tell you what happened first. First, Abhijit Mukherjee tweeted that he wanted to vet the memoirs and asked the publishers to stop the book before his written consent was there. Then Sharmishta Mukherjee told off her brother on Twitter for seeking cheap publicity and forbade him from creating what she calls his unnecessary hurdles in the release of his father's book. Now, Abhijit's surprising request comes days after the release of the excerpts in which the former president blames Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh for Congress's exit from power. Now, let's bring out those tweets for you, the Twitter spat that happened between the brother and the sister. Abhijit Mukherjee said in that tweet that I, the son of author of the memoir of the president memoir, request you to kindly stop the publication of the memoir as well as motivated excerpts which is already floating in certain media platforms without my written consent. Now, 2 hours later, his sister hung him out to dry when calling him out for the title error that he had himself amended in a tweet. She said, I, the daughter of the author of the memoir, The President Years and the Presidential Years, request my brother Abhijit not to create any unnecessary hurdles in publication of the last book written by my father. He completed the manuscript before he fell sick. So what exactly is this entire fiasco about? Surely the answer lies on those contentious bits that the Sun does not want coming out, seem to be critical of the Congress leadership. Let me bring in Sanjay Jha on that one, political analyst. Also joining us is Smita Gupta. Sanjay Jha, you are now what is being called the Congress's 23 part of that team now, which looks into and has been constantly questioning the leadership in the Congress party. Would you say now Sharmistha Jha is joining the ranks? It seems she's out there saying, well, truth needs to come out, all critical of the Congress leadership.
Well, to begin with, I feel very privileged and honored to be part of the G23 group. It is a group that is not, just ordinary dissenters. These are people who care for the future of the Congress party. We are, I think, the genuine congressmen. We are people who are pro-change. And I think it is the no-changers that have a lot to explain to the people of India as to why the Congress is floundering. But to answer your question on this, exchange between the brother and sister, both Sharmistha and Abhijit are people I know. I have a lot of respect for both of them. It's an independent view. And, just because they're siblings born in the same family doesn't mean that you necessarily agree on the way forward. I think, we need to just kind of respect the fact that everybody has their own independent opinion on issues and not treat it as some kind of a, family fracas.
But Sanjay, it's not so much like their independent opinions here which are differing. It's more what is it that they don't want, or should I be blunt enough to say what is it that Abhijit does not want come out in the public domain? Smita, why don't you come in on that one? Yesterday I was talking to my colleague Sunil Prabhu. He covers the Congress very, very closely. In fact, he was telling me that he was at that press briefing where Pranab Mukherjee had released the first few volumes of these books. And he said that there are certain sections in this that are not for public consumption. I'm leaving those in the safe hands of my daughter. Are we to understand these are the same excerpts which Pranab Da did not want to be published that are now the bone of contention?
Possibly, we won't know the truth entirely unless Sharmistha is probably the only person who knows. She was extremely close to her father. In a way, she was more his political heir than the son, even though the son became an member of parliament. As for the contents and whether they should be published, I don't know whether Mr. Pranab Mukherjee had left behind anything in writing saying what he wanted to do with these particular sections. If he had written them at some point, perhaps he wanted them to be published, maybe not during his lifetime, especially if they were contentious or if they were critical of the Congress party. Now, it's a tricky question. I mean, do you, after all, the person who wrote them has the right, even if he is no longer alive, to have some role in the decision to publish or not to publish that. Many people do write things during their lifetime, but they say that they don't want it to be published till after they die. Now, this is something obviously Sharmistha is privy to, or maybe even the son is privy to. Now, both of them also have their political careers to look at, so maybe they are looking at it in that particular way. It's
chasing
something that I think
different camps within the Congress party. It seems the brother and the sister over there.
Exactly. So I think it's a kind of a bit of a whodunit, and we will see how things unravel. But I think whatever Mr. Mukherjee might have wanted should actually be the most important thing in consideration of whether what he had written should be published or not.
And who becomes the final gatekeeper for his memoirs? Actually, that's the big question now. But Sanjay Jha, back to you. So at this point, it seems like both Abhijit and Sharmistha are probably looking at two different kinds of leaderships in the Congress party. They've pretty much thrown the divide and the split quite open here.
Well, I will repeat that once again, Sonal, that ultimately this is critically dependent not on the opinion of either of them. It is all upon the publisher contract that the existing publisher of the book, Rupa, and with the late former President Pranab Mukherjee. And I have read the entire series of books that he's written earlier, which has captured his entire life in different volumes. And I can tell you this, he's been very, very candid. You know, he has addressed issues. He's talked about the split with when Mamata Banerjee walked away. He's mentioned candidly that there were many people against him because they suspected that he had a private, hunger and a very, desperate political ambition to become prime minister when, former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. It is not a secret. I'm telling you, it is not a secret. I have written it in my own forthcoming book that in 2004, there were many people within the Congress party who felt Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was a natural claimant to the role of the Prime Minister when Mrs. Gandhi decided not to actually become one. And they felt he had the political heft, a great experience, very well respected across parties, and the Congress party was going to form a pre-coalition arrangement government where they felt he was the ideal candidate. And, if he said so, I really feel it is actually not breaking news, because this is something which was internally understood, that he was not made the Prime Minister because there were certain misgivings about his perception or his apparent intent of what happened in 1991. And it's important that we debate these issues. I'm a big believer in the fact that in India, politicians are very mealy-mouthed. We are very hyper cautious what's going to happen. I'm pretty much in active politics. I'm pretty much part of G23. I've written a very candid book myself, and hopefully we'll debate it on your channel at some point. And I think it's important to have these discussions.
Well, I think the fact that
through.
Anybody wants to not release those excerpts is what is getting everybody interested in those excerpts even more. So I don't know what is going to keep people from actually reading it out. Just to leave our viewers, before we slip into a break, with one of the excerpts from that book. He says, this is Pranab Mukherjee writing in his book, saying that while Dr. Singh was preoccupied with saving the coalition, which took a toll on governance, Modi seemed to have employed a rather autocratic style of governance during his first term. I do believe that party's leadership, he's talking about the Congress party now, lost political focus after my elevation as president. Just a glimpse of what's more to come. Thank you both for joining us this morning. We're going to slip into a break. Back in a moment.